I'm Corey.
Hi, I'm Tess.
Welcome to A Lovely Place.
We're so glad you've joined us as we invite Jesus into the midst of our lives, learning, and laughter.
We hope this podcast can encourage your heart and make you smile today.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend.
We are here again. This is A Lovely Place, and we are continuing our journey through the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I am loving this book. Also, I'm like, okay, once I read this, I don't have a lot of excuses. I actually need to start doing some of these atomic habits.
Yes. And then I was praying, can it get stuck in my head? Because this is my second time, going through it. And I'm like, oh, man. So some things some things sound familiar. Like, oh, I have sort of been doing that. And then, but not like, it doesn't feel like this. I've mapped it out and wrote all these things down. So I feel like that's the next thing that I could do. It make it more concrete or something, or I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm enjoying it also.
Yes. So the concept that we're talking about this time around is the second law, which is make it attractive. I thought this was a really interesting section. I think it was encouraging to me because he talks a lot about the role of dopamine in not decision making, but in cravings or reward, like that.
Yeah,
that
the
kind
cue
of thing.
and response. Yeah.
And how important dopamine is to it. And I think it just helped like normalize some things or remind me how normal some of the things that I do are. Not to say that they're good or positive, but they're normal. And it's not like I'm weird for liking to eat candy or, like things like that.
Right,
it was like just a confirmation, like this is your body. It's like not evolutionary, but like it's kind of instinctual.
Yeah, it's in a pattern.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh,
and it
okay.
takes, yeah. Well, and then like I was talking to my counselor the other day about food, right? Trying to eat mindfully and intuitively. And so then the other day I was making Riker's lunch before school. And so I made his sandwich and I was putting some Easter candy into his lunchbox. And before there was no intention, no nothing. Eggs were going in my mouth. And I'm just like, and I told her, I said, I just ate breakfast. So it wasn't like a hungry thing. And then she was like, well, tell me about the rest of the moment of what was happening. And was a little busy, stressful, trying to get out the door, get all the things like pulled together to go. And so she was like, well, no wonder your body reached for that because it knows that Easter egg gives you that, this tastes good. And that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
In that stressful situation. So then there was more grace I could give myself looking backward, like, oh, there was no intention, but I wasn't like I was an evil intention either. It was just my habits were like, hey, candy makes me happy when I feel stressed. And
your environment,
so that was so
kind
cool.
of like he had talked about last time. Like if candy wasn't the easy thing in that moment, then you probably would have chosen something else. But candy was the most convenient thing. It was right by your fingers. There. You're already grabbing
and
it.
I'm touching it already. It's like, oh man. So then like later I realized like usually I put one wrapped Reese's Pieces peanut butter cup, the little mini ones, and I put it in his lunch because it's like a fun little something, and he gets it in his lunch at school. But those are wrapped up. So it takes time. It makes it less attractive. I think I'm skipping ahead because I read both things. But anyways, it's harder to just eat. I can't just pop that in because you don't want to eat foil because that's gross. So
yeah, that would be nasty.
So I was just noticing like, because normally I don't eat his candy when I'm putting it in the lunchbox. Yeah. So I just thought that was an interesting contrast of, well, I don't even know if it was whatever. I learned something. Thanks, friends, for learning with me.
I was especially like, I don't know what the right word is. I was impacted by what he was saying about the dopamine and how he was talking about the rats. Like they did the experiment with the rats and they blocked
Yes.
the dopamine, and then the rats like had no desire to live. Basically, I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But when he was
Yeah.
just talking about how the like the anticipation is so much more
Yeah.
powerful than the actual when you experience something, like the
Right.
wanting is more
Right.
powerful than the liking. Like you get so much more of a dopamine hit with the wanting. And I I think if you think about that too much, it can be a little discouraging. But then I was like,
Yeah.
but reminding myself you can flip it the other way, like, and like he's saying, and use it to your advantage, like, and hack your
Right.
brain, basically, which I'm like,
Yes. Yes.
okay, that's good. That's good. You know,
Yeah.
it's not all like,
Well,
I'm
and
just a slave to dopamine, you know?
yeah, we are, but let's use it to our
Yeah.
advantage, right? I think Dawn the Minimal Mom read this book, and so a few of different of her videos at the time she was reading it was talking about that dopamine and combine that habit stacking that James Clear illustrates throughout the book. And so that has helped me do the dishes because I'm like, I get to put my earbuds in and watch whatever I want and do the dishes. Like, so that's like, I get excited about like that Riker's in bed and I'm finishing up the dishes. Like, so it's a new habit
Yeah, that's
and I
good.
like it. And then sometimes Stefan will help with the dishes. I don't want to discourage that, but the other day I was like, "Wait, this is
This is not the way
it
it's
was
supposed to
funny. Like,
go.
yeah, I'm supposed to do dishes so I can watch a show without guilt."
That's
And he's
funny.
like, "Just go watch a show." I'm like, "Okay." Like so, but it helped. It's so I guess that just made me realize how much I had trained that moment, right? Like to be like, "Oh, if you do dishes, you can watch a something."
Yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny how ingrained it gets and then you don't realize it. So
Yeah.
that's like using it to your advantage. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I underlined this quote that he said. He said, "We have the brains of our ancestors, but temptations they never had to face." And I was like, wow, that's, and I was thinking about that in the context of like our kids and how
Mhm.
much the cultural landscape and the technological landscape has changed since
Yes.
we were kids.
Huge.
And I was like, okay, like the way my kids act makes sense. Like it's not, I was watching this one psychologist on Facebook the other day when she was talking about setting screen time limits and just to
Mhm.
be like consistent but to be empathetic, and like she used the phrase like putting the screen down is really hard for me too. Like I understand, but right now your time, you've had your time, it's up or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, because we struggle with that with both the kids, or I mean, all the kids, really. It's like anytime they can, they will go and grab a screen and turn it on. And sometimes I'm like, okay, just
Yeah.
like do something else. But it makes
Mhm.
sense with the dopamine, and it's like, so he was talking about these seagulls where they did an experiment. They painted a red dot onto the beak
Uh-huh.
of these cardboard pieces, like cardboard beaks. And because they had noticed that baby seagulls peck this red spot on their mom's
Their
beak,
parent
right?
or
Because they
whether,
want
yeah.
food.
Mhm.
And they said the
Right.
bigger the red spot, the more they would peck it. And then they had multiple red spots and they went crazy. And, so,
Yeah.
um,
I'm going to get my
right.
food.
So he was saying they're like these supercharged stimulus that like gets our bodies, our brains like, oh, yeah, that's really good. And
Mhm.
that technology is like this supercharged stimulus. It's not anything we would experience in nature. So we just go, our brains just go crazy for it. Now, I think
Mhm.
it just helps me to realize it's not like it's not like innately bad. It's just the way our brains are made,
Right.
you know?
Right. Right.
So then,
It's not like, why don't you have self-control?
yeah, which then helps
Yeah.
because, you know, it's like the in end emotional eating where it's like the way you feel about your feelings determines if you're suffering or
Right.
if you're more liberated, you know? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Well, we had that conversation about screens yesterday, and Riker was not very happy with us. And then he tried to do oh, Dad told me no, I'm going to ask Mom. And he was like, Mom, can I watch a show? And I'm like, no. And your dad, I believe, told you couldn't. And he was like, oh, you guys just gang up on me. Like, I was like, oh dear. It turned into a whole other parenting conversation. But eventually I didn't say exactly like, it's hard for me too, but I was just like trying to be empathetic to his big feelings because who doesn't want to sit on the couch with a cozy blanket and watch shows that are meant to feed that dopamine, right? I mean,
yes.
YouTube, they know what they're doing on those YouTube channels.
Yes. Oh,
Anyways,
I was going to say that
yeah.
was the other thing that I kind of made me angry with this chapter. He was talking specifically about food manufacturers, like the food science. Like they study how to make food more addictive essentially so that you will buy it and you will eat more
Yeah.
of it. And I feel like that's the same with TV shows, video games, like
Yeah.
they know exactly how to get you hooked and they
Yeah.
take advantage of that. So I'm like, now I'm angry.
Yeah. But going along with the role of family and friends, like then I was like, okay, Riker, let's go outside. Like, so I was doing a project with Stefan doing the barbecue things. And then it took him a minute. And it was like two different things. I was trying to let him be bored and not fix the problem. And then, but also like say, hey, we're going to be outside right now and do like he was invited to come with us. It wasn't like he had to sit by himself if like
Right. You gave
so
him an alternative that was also a good thing, not just like you
yeah,
get to be bored and go look at the wall.
right. Yeah. And then it was like took him a minute, but then he was playing with the pool and the water and then he was outside for like 2 hours and he was happy and he was content with playing with himself. Like he wasn't even needing me necessarily, like we just kept doing stuff and I would check in with him because he's in a pool,
Right.
but he's also 8, so yay. It's not like a little tiny baby.
Yes.
So it was just cool, like just like I know in the example in the book it was talking about the kids that were playing chess, so that wasn't quite the same, but just that environment that you're like everybody's outside. It's not like we were on our phone still telling Riker he couldn't watch anything, like because that's like even more like adding insult to like, okay, it's so when you said it's hard for mommy to turn her phone off too, I'm like, yes,
I
it
know.
is because it's in my pocket.
I had a moment of that yesterday. So we have old phones like that just have Wi-Fi that the kids use to listen to Odyssey because we have Adventures in Odyssey app, which is like one of their favorite, not podcasts, but like something to listen to.
Yeah.
And so Jackson listens to it at bedtime sometimes, but lately he's been, instead of just leaving the phone up on his desk to listen to it, he has it down by him and he's like taking pictures of himself or I don't even know what. He can't unlock it, but there's still some things you can do when it's locked,
right.
And Daniel told him like, I'm going to take the phone away if you're still on the screen. And I went in to say goodnight and he was poking around at the screen and I was like, okay, well, Dad told you have to put it away now or we're going to take it out. And he was like, no, it's not fair. And I was like, I'm sorry, buddy. Like, I know it's hard. And he was like, you're on your phone all the time. Like, he went off on me and I was like, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I will take that as a friendly reminder to spend less time on my phone. Like, but it was like, ouch for a second there. Like,
yes.
Oof.
And then separating us, like our job is to help parent them, right? Like, and to set those limits when, but it does feel like a mirror right in front of your face. Like, wait a minute, what are you doing?
Yes.
So if we've learned anything from James Clear, it's make it teeny tiny atomic habit to change.
Yes. And I was thinking like in the first part where he had talked about being aware of your habits and like the habit scorecard where you just write them down, that made me think that usually, like, hopefully this isn't TMI, but like this, when I get up in the morning, sometimes when I go into the bathroom, I'll bring my phone with me. And then I was like kind of having an awareness of that this morning. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go in and then get, my Bible and then go read and not have my phone be the first thing that's in front of my face in the mornings, so.
My bathroom buddy. It's like a mom timeout, right? They tease me that, mom's going to the bathroom and she's taking her phone.
Well,
man. I can't believe I just said that.
Sometimes you just need a moment to yourself. And it's like, okay.
But I agree with you though. Like starting right away in the morning like that is not necessarily the habit I would like to continue to cultivate.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I think maybe when I was reading this book a while ago, the first time, I think I was charging my phone up out in the dining room. And so I didn't bring it into our bedroom. And then last night I was laying in bed watching a show and I'm like, oh, so many people tell you not to do that. And then I'm like, I told Stephen, I'm being bad and I'm watching a show in bed. And he's like, wow, you go girl. Something teasing me like that. Like, but it was just like, oh man. So, but I was watching something and I wasn't just scrolling because scrolling and that's worse.
It's like an endless,
terrible.
It just
endless.
You lose time and
you have nothing to show for anything.
It's horrible.
Does anybody else feel like that out there?
Oh my goodness.
Some more hints and tips from James. I guess what I'm thinking too, like I was talking, like they were talking about the people have a herd mentality and we want to be like the other people.
Yes.
And to the point we will even say something is not true, like that line illustration.
Yeah, the experiment with
and
the
then
groups.
So many people were like, no, I think it's A. And the answer was clearly C. And they're like, yeah,
I guess it is.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh,
that
man.
was crazy. And the more people that gave the wrong answer, the more likely the subject was to also give the wrong answer. I'm just like, that really, like, I don't know. I think that one made me think more along the lines for my kids, like, who is like speaking into their lives and who are they spending a lot of time around,
Right.
But I think it's true for us too, like the things that we watch and the things that we expose ourselves to really can change how we do things, how we feel about things, even though it's not like specific people around us. If we surround ourselves with enough input that's saying this thing, then you start to I like believe it,
Yeah.
So
I was I was at a ladies' first thing I was at our church, and they were doing a little like Bible quiz. Like, is this Bible verse in the Bible, or is this just something that people say and claim it's in the Bible? Like, so it was just taking those little sneaky verses and stuff. And then I just couldn't remember where it was at. And it ends up that it was in multiple places in the Bible, but I was just like, no, this is in the Bible. And it was the verse about God being slow to anger and full of grace and compassion. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it was just like, but it was that group dynamic and we had to have a group consensus. So then I was like, I don't think this is right, but I'm the new girl and I'm going to go with the rest of you.
That's funny.
And so I just remember feeling like that. Like,
and I'm pretty sure that's like most quoted. That's the most quoted phrase in the Bible. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, see, and so then there we are. But I think that was what was tripping them up was like, is that actually a Bible verse or, like, so it just was interesting.
I think I remember on the Bible recap that she said It's the most quoted in the Bible. Like that
Okay.
phrase appears in the Bible. I maybe I'm wrong, but I remember it was like
Yeah.
significant, that phrase of, slow to anger, abounding in love, or whatever, all of
Yes.
that.
And we hear apparently we need to learn it. I know that was in Deuteronomy
Yeah.
somewhere, another times in Psalm, and then
And then
I don't
again,
know.
I think it's in the
We'll
New
find them and put them
Testament.
in the show
Yeah.
notes.
I think it's in the
Okay,
New
yeah.
Testament too.
Probably okay, remember what Moses said?
Right?
Or whatever, right? Like, oh
Oh.
man. But still like putting yourself in community with people that are going in the same direction you want to be going is so important.
Yes. Yeah, he was saying how important that is, even if you reach your goal, to make sure that you stay in community with that group, because it helps you to keep to a lifestyle that you want. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was really good. And then it made me think that
Would
we're in community with each other and we love to read books. And so we keep encouraging each other to read books.
I know. And here we are still doing it. So
Mhm.
I'm glad for that. Like, I want to be a book reading person and not just talk about reading, or even though that's what we're doing, I guess. Right?
But
Oh
we
man.
are reading.
But, right. Oh man. And then I think, was it still in this section, the basic need for things?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And
Yes.
that I thought was
Um,
really powerful. He
Yeah.
said where cravings come from. And he was talking about, like, you could be craving tacos, but the underlying motive for that is that your body needs food. Like, so looking at what is the underlying motive for any of your cravings, because then it's
Yeah.
almost like easier to break it down and maybe to find like an alternative for
Right.
how to satisfy that crave or that motive.
Yeah. 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 Like, because if you want a taco, it's not like it means you're hungry, not like I need a hug.
Right.
But maybe if we go back to emotional eating, then maybe it is. But there we go with the check-in.
Right.
Yeah. But so the little list, can I read
Yeah.
that? Like finding love and to reproduce, you might use Tinder. If you connect, or you wanting to connect and bond with others, you might browse Facebook. Win social acceptance and approval, you might post on Instagram. Reducing uncertainty, search on Google. Achieve status and prestige, playing video games. And all of those things were around technology. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
And I think
like,
are you
what
okay?
can we do
Okay.
to
Yeah.
Oh, and then it really stood out to me. He said, when you binge eat or light up or browse social media, what you really want is not a potato chip or a cigarette or a bunch of likes. What you really want is to feel different. I was like, oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Hi, Brianna.
Yes, we have a visitor coming here.
Her voice is adorable. I love it.
Oh my goodness.
So what we've learned is we're normal. We like dopamine, but yet we can work with it in our favor. Is what the big takeaway. Like, I'm like, if we're making it attractive, then we're using what already makes it, or how I understand it. Can you tell, friends?
Think we have the power to hack our brains, right? Like, so it's a powerful thing, but we get to steer it in the way that we want, which makes me think we have to steer. We can't just coast. We have to steer where we go.
Right.
But it is this whole dopamine thing. You can use it to your advantage if you're intentional and aware of what's causing the dopamine hits,
Right. Well, and then now I don't know what maybe it was on this page, but I want to feel different. And so instead of I have to go make dinner, he was changing it to I get to make dinner.
Yeah.
So then I kept going. I get to homeschool Riker. I get to work part-time. Yes. Like, so I was just like, okay, I get to go. I get to do.
Yes.
So that's going to be my new mantra. That's my big takeaway from today. I get to
Yes.
drink some water.
There you go. And
Yeah.
surround yourself with people who also are trying to look at life that way. Which takes me to the verse that we had talked about for today, which is 1 Corinthians 15:33, which says, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character," which just reminds me that, you know, whether it's people or media input, like the space that I spend most of my mental time will really determine. Okay, just a second. Will really determine like how I perceive my life. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Amen. I love it. And Rayanna is so sweet and chatting to mommy. And so that's like another example too. Like we get to be in life together with our kids, with our friends, and who's around us.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, friends. Thank you, listeners. We hope you're enjoying reading through this book with us, and we're excited for the next episode.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love it.
You get a raspberry from
That's
Rayanna.
right. You get to listen to that.
Bye.
Bye, friends.